Hey, everybody, welcome back. Kimberly, Lynne, and Whitney, Christina. You are here for another episode of HypnoPro Accelerator. We are your partners in the fast lane to hypnosis success. How are you today, Whitney?
I am doing great, Kimberly. I had a really interesting day yesterday. I was on a podcast called Misunderstood, and we were talking about the misunderstandings of hypnosis. And I was so intrigued by this topic. I thought we could talk about this today.
Yeah, that's great. We are going to talk about what one of the biggest questions you got asked yesterday, which is, what are you seeing in your business? What is on the rise? And what was your answer to that?
What I have been noticing, which is really interesting, is social anxiety or social anxiousness, just being anxious in social situations. To some of the people are to the point of um, paralysis, kind of. I mean, that's really just a strong word, but they cannot move on. They don't know what to do. I had one client that she said she would go in the bathroom at work and lay on the floor for an hour because she was afraid of these social situations. So it's a really interesting topic, and I have had so many people do some dramatic turnarounds. It's I love this part. I love this part of the job is when people just turn it around and like, oh yeah, no, that's not a thing.
Awesome. Awesome. So stick with us. We are going to dive deep into this topic. We're going to talk about, is it really true this is on the rise? What could be the cause? And the amazing transformation that people get with hypnosis. So stick around. Welcome to HypnoPro Accelerator, the podcast set to transform your hypnosis business. I'm Kimberly, Lynne, and alongside my partner, Whitney, Christina, we're your co-pilots in the fast lane to success for professional hypnotists. Join us as we explore the art of building a thriving hypnosis practice. We'll discuss captivating offers, effective client communication, and share our own insights from the profession. No gimmicks, just practical strategies from two experts who understand the world of professional hypnosis inside and out. So grab your coffee or something stronger we won't judge and settle in and get ready to accelerate your hypnosis business like never before. It's time to take your practice to new heights. Let's make it happen. So we're back. And before we dive really deep into this topic, which is, I think, going to be really interesting to everybody, Whitney and I want to make our disclaimer, which is that as hypnotists who are not licensed professionals, we do not diagnose and we do not treat diagnosed disorders. And so anytime we use the term social anxiety or use the term anxiety at all, we are not saying that we are treating it. If it has been diagnosed for somebody and they do come to us, that is not something that we're treating, but we are also just helping the whole individual.
Correct. And I do want to say we have been referred by professionals, licensed professionals, to help with this lots of times. But
Yep.
we work in coordination with their care provider to do that. And we coach them, and their care provider provides the diagnosis and their treatment. We're part of
Absolutely.
we're part of the plan.
That's right. Absolutely. So let's get to it, Whitney. Do you think that social anxiety is on the rise?
I do. And here's why I think so. Because 70% of the people walking through my door say that they just feel nervous or anxious in social situations. Um, and what's really almost to a person, they're like, I never used to be like that. But for some reason, I am just more anxious when I'm around people.
Huh.
What have you noticed?
I definitely have noticed that. Well, I became a hypnotist in 2019. So my business really launched 6 months before pandemic.
Mhm.
And I noticed that when people came to me and said they did have a diagnosis, it may have existed before, but it definitely got worse after pandemic. And many of my clients did not have a diagnosis and may not have even identified as a person who had anxiety. But if they had it now, it started and developed after quarantine.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that with quarantine, some things happened that haven't happened here since, I don't know, I may be wrong in saying this, but like the Great World Wars, right? We during those times we had the country had a feeling of imminent doom, right? And
Yep.
because of what was going on with the wars and stuff like that. And in my lifetime, I haven't seen anything like that. But the world changed when all of a sudden they were for real closing down the country. And they were saying 6 feet apart and wear masks. And it was crazy. You would go to the store and they would have you wash your food before you brought it in your house. I'm not talking about rinse your veggies. I'm talking about wash off the cans,
Yep.
disinfect the toilet paper, like all of those things, disinfect it before you came into the house. It
Mhm.
was it was not something, I mean, even like money changed after that, right? Because before we would pay cash and we would hand people money, and now um, the companies aren't accepting money, right? So now you're paying with your debit card and tap to pay because money could cause infection. I mean, that's down to that's so systemic, that level of unease and fear. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
whether, that was right or wrong, but I
Mhm.
am saying that that just permanently imprinted,
Yeah.
and not permanently, but it definitely imprinted
Yeah.
fear and anxiousness, and
Yeah.
that wasn't there before.
I agree with you. And, for many people who has affected them this way, this is an ongoing issue. And here's why. If you are up to date on the developments of COVID, it is always changing. It is winter. It is 2025. And the US is experiencing like three different major outbreaks right now of different
Hmm.
kinds of infectious illnesses, right? There's tuberculosis in Kansas.
Hmm.
There's a major influenza outbreak in the country. There's avian flu with all the eggs and the cattle. There is rotavirus going around, huge outbreaks of rotavirus everywhere. And health experts are still recommending
Hmm.
that certain people wear masks, that actually all people wear masks still. And so whether you choose to mask up or not is not what we're talking about here, but there has been a major change for people who were adults before pandemic and adults now. So younger people, this is kind of all they've known, but for us, we have a before and an after, and it is still different. And if you aren't equipped to mentally and emotionally deal with that, it can be devastating.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And so I know, Kim, that you were doing some research to say, okay, so is this true? So what did you find?
I did find that, yes, there is definitely an increase in anxieties in general, but also in social anxieties. Um, a lot of the research seems oriented towards younger generations, and as they move into adulthood in the last 4 to 5 years, there is an increase in social anxieties. I think it seems to be with the research that it does have roots in pandemic, but also seems to have a very large connection to social media as well. Basically saying that almost because of pandemic, we are all now at a distance, but we get all of our information and all of our interactions through virtual social media. And so meeting in person is not as normal as it used to be. And then for younger people too, you have the factor of social media isn't as real as we sometimes think it is. And so there's all the self-image issues that go with it. So that's increasing their general anxiety, I think. But when it comes to social, they're just not used to getting out there. My kids, I try to help my child who's in college for her first semester with a technical issue. And I said, well, here's the helpline desk. In my day, you just You just call the support desk for anything. If you wanted to know when the due date for like enrollment was or how to find this thing on campus, you called the help desk. My daughter just can't make that phone call on her own. She just can't talk to people. It's actually anxiety inducing for her.
That is, that to me is crazy because in my mind,
I
I'm
know.
like, kids, social media, like you're interacting with people all the time, but you're really not.
You're not
You're,
one-on-one.
you're right. You're not in person. And
Mhm.
that is sad and interesting also.
Yeah. It makes me think, okay, so younger generations, they're really basically just not used to having one-on-one direct communication with another human being like previous generations before. But the older generations, they're on social media too. And then the constant messaging that can be very negative if you're not careful is what's contributing to their problems with anxiety and social anxiety. So different reasons probably for different
Mhm.
generations, but social media after pandemic seems to have be a very large component.
And I think too, just going back to the older generation, you have the older generation that now has implemented these post-pandemic things, and they are raising the generation Gen Z now. So
Yep.
it is like I have a 7-year-old niece that carries hand sanitizer with her, is always sanitizing her hands.
Yep.
You should wash your hands, you should be sanitary, but to some point, at what point do you become like compulsive about it or
Yes.
have some kind of phobia about touching and
Yes. Well, I think the answer is when it prevents you from doing something that you would normally or want to do.
Mhm.
And unfortunately for the younger generations, they don't know. A really great book um by I'll have to link it in the description. It was by John Volk, I believe. It's called Fight, and it's all about Gen Z and their anxieties and also how their emotions and their general in touchedness with their feelings actually being a good thing is also contributing to their anxiety. But he talks about how these younger generations, they weren't raised up in a Lord of the Flies kind of way, like millennials were, like Gen Xers were, and even baby boomers were. We were all kind of left to fight it out on our own. I know when I had kids, some of my kids are a little bit older, but some of them are Gen Z. I was much more protective of them. The world was a different place. They did not get the opportunity to hop on their bikes and bike all over town independently at 9 years old, 10 years old, like I
Mhm.
did. They didn't build the skills of adventure and challenge and going out into unknown places so that now when my 19-year-old who's 19 now was 17, he wouldn't go across the parking lot when I was at a car dealership getting my tires fixed, and I asked him to go to the McDonald's across the parking lot to grab me a coffee. He was like, I can't do it. And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I would go to Dairy Queen on my own at 8 years old, order myself an ice cream." But these children are just unfortunately, there's just such a lack of the ability to go out and build your own resilience that they headed into pandemic without that. And
Mhm.
so it was devastating to them. And then again, with older generations, I think the constant negative, scary change that the world has become. It is a different world after COVID when it comes to infection. It's just different. And so it's just huge. So what do we do about it? What are we gonna do?
Well, I know. Um, so for me, and again, I say this is really so rewarding for me as a hypnotist, is people come in with this perspective of the world being scary and can't do things and to me it's like what you were describing with your son. I mean, that's a lack of self-confidence and a
Yeah.
lack of, and they didn't get the opportunity to build that.
Yeah.
So I have had some amazing transformations with people with this kind of mindset of just the fear and the anxiousness about talking with people and stuff like that. And by, we were talking about the secret language of feelings. So when a feeling comes up, like, what do you do with it? Right. So um, as hypnotists and coaches, like we coach on here's what you do with fear. Here's what you do with anger. Here's what you do with it. And when you see it come up, recognize it and know what to do with it. And then also recognize the truth about you, right? That you are strong, you are confident, you
Mhm.
can do this. That anxiousness is just long-term fear that is just in there. And if you do a reality check and you see that, okay, no saber-toothed tiger coming to bite me, right? It
Mhm.
is just across the parking lot. I am in eyesight of my mom the
Right.
whole time.
Right.
And just getting them in hypnosis to realize that
Mm.
and actually even visualize themselves in that situation, visualize themselves doing, um, going across the parking lot or
Yeah.
going, like my kids, they're like, I want to go to Japan. I'm like, okay, go ahead. Um, but just having that confidence of, yeah, I can do it. I have, it's really interesting because when people come in for hypnosis, they're coming in for different reasons. I had this guy that was coming in because he had a GI issue and he had been to doctor after doctor after doctor. And they're like, no, there's nothing wrong with your GI system. Everything's fine.
Really?
And he, we did some hypnosis with him, and he actually forgot about his GI issue and decided that he was going to uh, do like sand volleyball teams, right?
Mm.
Um, and he was going to do sand volleyball, and he wanted, after our sessions, he was going to do sand volleyball, and he also wanted to take dance lessons. And he said, you know what? I think people like me, right? So,
Uh-huh.
and they absolutely did. He was a wonderful human being, but he just didn't know how to interact with them socially. So that is an amazing transformation to be a person that is
Yeah.
having GI issues and in pain um, all the time, to being someone that's going to go out and live life and explore and become confident, do things and realize that, yeah,
Yeah.
people do like me and there is nothing wrong with me. And I am everything that I came into this world to be.
Yeah.
So it's transformations like that. I'm like, "Huh."
Yeah, I know, I love it. I have had this I'm so glad you brought this up because I get to share this observation that I have been, ruminating on, I think for over a year, which is that when I get clients who are my age or older, sometimes younger, but most of the time my age or older, so mid-40s up, and we're dealing with anxieties and or social anxieties, there is sometimes, and I'm going to get real out there right now, but I think there is a lot of times where they really haven't come to terms with their that they're going to die someday and what's going to happen.
Their
Because
mortality.
yeah, they are looking COVID in the face saying, I might have a health issue that makes me really sensitive or, a fragile community. Um, what does this new world mean for me? It's not safe anywhere, right?
Right.
And so they have not been able to come to terms with their mortality and what's going to happen. And so I find a lot of time in the coaching, talking about what they actually think happens after someone passes away. And what does that in turn mean for them? Um, Sometimes they say they believe that, good things will happen, but I actually find out most of the time that they can't decide. That these people, in general, like the vast majority of my people that have come in are the people that don't know
Mhm.
and they're not
Exactly.
sure and they're very concerned about it because they feel like they're in the category generally of people who, well, I don't have enough evidence, so I can't decide, but I'm not sure. But I hope that this happens, but I'm not sure. So we do a lot of talking about, is it time for you to investigate your spirituality and what you believe? And should you read more books because you need more information? I know that for a lot of people, that has been very helpful for them. So that's something that in the coaching time that's outside of the hypnosis, I often recommend they do, which is ask more questions and actually confront that issue because that seems to the existential crisis is really at the basis of social anxiety for those older people.
Mhm. That's a great observation. I love that you do that.
Yeah. But anyways, it actually ends up usually being a really, really great thing. They coming to terms and are, recognizing that if they do have spiritual beliefs, that, um, how do I put it? They're feeling secure and
Uh-huh.
they're feeling assured of what they believe now, and that makes a huge difference, right? I feel like we can do all the hypnotic suggestion and reinforcement about, you're not actually in danger, your likelihood of this or that is very low, but when it comes down to it, if you do not address that true existential crisis
Mhm.
portion of it, they it'll transfer somewhere else or just come back. So
Yeah.
it's pretty necessary.
And what I like about the hypnosis that we do is we have this really holistic approach to it. So, we're doing the hypnosis you came in for, but we're also teaching you the self hypnosis where you get in touch, in deep touch with every cell of your being, with your
Yeah.
higher power. Yeah. And so you no longer question or worry about it because you just keep going on with that self hypnosis, and you know that you're not alone,
Yeah.
and you know that you're creating this life with
Yes.
your higher power, and after everything that happens
Yeah.
is
Well,
all with that.
in addition to that, though, every once in a while, I do get this doesn't happen a lot, but I have had a few people who are atheist or maybe agnostic at a
Hmm.
minimum, but even even those people, when they address what they really believe about what happens after they pass away, it's very helpful. So when it comes down to it, if being permanently forever separated from their loved ones and nothing, is distressing to them, we have to come to a place where if that's what they believe, then they have to feel comfortable with it. So I do a lot of limiting belief work and
Hmm.
that kind of work in addition to all the positive suggestions and reframing that you're
Yeah.
talking about. Because even if you're not a spiritual person, you still have to address the distress that you are
Hmm.
basically having at the thought of dying. So,
Right.
anyways, yeah, really interesting.
I love this topic. This was a great
Yeah.
one.
Yes. Well, what else do you have anything else for us before we head out today?
I don't. I just was really hit by this topic when I was doing that podcast yesterday, and I just really wanted to share with people um, what
Yeah.
we do and why it's so rewarding for me to
Yeah.
be able to work with people and have them just turn it around.
Yep. I love that. I have to say I'm going to go back to the beginning. I was an anxious person. I had this is panic and anxiety like really bad and that's why I became a hypnotist to fix myself. And I found that it was so powerful. Like it so quickly got rid of my anxiety and my panic. It was just a matter of a few weeks. I don't think I ever had another panic attack after I started practicing the self work and the self hypnosis. And the anxiety went away after just a few weeks. And then what happens to my clients and what happened to me is that you get to the point where you're not just experiencing a lack of anxiety but what you're experiencing is the presence of something positive, like the ability to go out, be resilient, meet up with challenge, have adventures, try hard things, fail sometimes. So you grow and you release yourself from that cage that the anxiety's been keeping you in, whatever it is. And your life expands way beyond what you think is even really possible before that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I love that.
Yeah, it's great. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Stick around. We release new episodes about once a week. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. It would really help us out if you would like and subscribe to our channel. Share this with other professional hypnotists in your sphere. Let them know about what we have going on. If you head to our website, you will be able to find information on our monthly free trainings. We call it Power Hour, and we cover all the things to get you started off on the right foot with business as a professional hypnotist. And we have way more information on our website. So just go investigate that too. If you need anything from us, send us a message, schedule a consultation. We are here and we will be back next week with more awesome professional hypnosis content. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.